This demo is going to go through adding a watercolor overlay to your image and integrating it and some options that you have. So you'll follow along with this step by step, but I'm going to talk you through some options that you have as you're putting this on your own. We are opening up the VW van photo right here, and you are going to do place embedded if you're in Photoshop, or open in place, which doesn't show up here. But if you're in Photo P, you're going to do open in place. And we are going to place our watercolor layer. When you put this on, it's going to be very small. If you are in Photoshop, just click and drag the corner. And we'll extend it pretty large to start. If you are in Photo P, make sure you hold Shift so it doesn't change or it doesn't distort it. All right, let's press Enter. We will end up coming back and changing this more later, but we're going to start with this. So we want to make this integrated as part of the photo. We're going to do that in a few different ways, and we're going to start with the blending mode. So click on the first one and just arrow down until you find one that blends well with it. So you can see as I go through these, some of them blend better with lighter parts than darker parts, and you're going to get a different effect based on that. So the top first ones that we looked at seemed the best. That one's kind of cool, but isn't going to work for the picture. We want to see the picture appropriately. Divide is also a great option. It makes it almost like a watermark. So depending on how it overlays on your picture, that could be a great option as well. For this demo, we are going to choose multiply. The other one that looks similar is linear burn. They might even be the same. Linear burn is just a little bit bolder with the color. So go ahead and choose multiply. Now, once you've done that, you can see how it's going to be integrated with your photo, and you want it to feel like it's a part of it. So let's go through some options. So we can start with a transform and choosing rotate. So if we rotate it over here, what does that look like? Okay, so here it's mostly in the sky. If that's the case, I kind of like this. You know, if we do it in the sky only, then we're going to want to make sure that we get something down on the bottom. All right, so let's rotate that, press Enter, and then that works really well up there. Now, let's duplicate that layer so that we could bring it down a little bit up to the bottom. Control J. That's going to be the copy. So if we just bring it down over here, we don't want it to be exactly the same because there should be some difference with this. We can get like a spot of it showing up here. So let's go back to Edit, Transform. Let's do a free transform this time, which will allow us to change like the angle of it as well as rotating it, changing the size. And what we could do is just have like a little splatter on the bottom. So a lot of it is going off. There is some repetition here, but we're going to work on that. So rotate it around, move it down so there's just a little bit kind of in the corner only. It's a splash. Press Enter. Let's go back to our first one. I'm going to rename this watercolor top, and let's do watercolor bottom. Let's go back to the top one and do our Edit Transform again. We can do a free transform. Now what we can do is make this way bigger. Make it feel like part of the picture a little bit differently. And now we can see we're cutting off a little bit of the part that we have down here. So we wouldn't even know that there's that repetition in there. And I like how it kind of almost feels like cloud, sun, kind of. And we can move that around to fit in there and press Enter. All right, now before we get too much further, we want to adjust for our subject. Okay, so for our actual photo, we want to do our adjustments. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to tell what it's going to look like exactly with our watercolor. So let's click on the background layer, go to adjustments. As always, let's do a levels. Bring those shadows down quite a bit. Highlights up. just a little bit. So we get that adjustment there. Your watercolor and the colors in your image should work together in some regard. So consider color theory. So let's do these two images right here. Let's start with the top one. We're going to adjust that. We can do a levels adjustment on that one. Just make sure you do the clipping mask. Okay, otherwise it's going to adjust the picture on the bottom too. So clipping mask if you're in Photoshop. If you are not in Photoshop, you are going to right click and do, here, I'll show you from here, create clipping mask. So that's if you're in Photo P, you right click on the layer and create clipping mask. And we'll double click on this little icon so we can go back and we can just change the value for the watercolor there, which is super nice. We don't want to bring the highlights up. And then we can really make that kind of pop out more. Same thing for the bottom one. It's going to look a little bit different. So let's click on bottom, click on levels, clipping mask. Really look at how that one changes here. Okay, now that we have that adjustment, now we can start to see how it's all going to work together. I would still do some more editing to this if this was my photo I was handing in. But in this case, let's see how we can change our watercolor overlay that we put on to have the colors work together a little bit better with our image. So we'll click on that layer once again. We're going to go to adjustments. And this time we'll do hue saturation, okay? If you're in Photoshop and you had a clipping mask on the layer right next to it for that, it automatically adds the clipping mask. So you can see that arrow going down. But if you're in Photo P, you're gonna once again right click and do create clipping mask. Okay, I need to do it for this one as well. Create clipping mask. All right, double click on this little icon so we can go back here. Now, we can see when we click on hue, we can start to change those colors a little bit. So if all of the colors work great at the same time, then you can move just the hue with the master on. You can also saturate it if that makes sense. It's a little too bold when we do that. Or change the lightness or darkness, which is going to change it for the whole layer and we get a line going through there. So let's leave that one at 0. All right. Now, however, if we go to master, we can look at this and say, you know, let's maybe see if we can change the yellows to maybe more of an orange to play off the door. Okay, so click on yellows and we shift those yellows to a different color. Just watch for things like this. We get kind of this halo-y look going around some of it. If that doesn't match your picture, then don't include that in there. But here we're pulling out some more orange and some more green, which is kind of nice. So shifting it to the left here is going to complement the colors in the photo. Same thing, we've got a little bit of a pinkish here, so let's switch this to magentas. We can see when we do that, we could go a little more orange with it as well. And now all the colors are going to work together. All right, one of the last things I want you to consider is how does the image lay on your photo? So for example, if the watercolor right here was overlaying on my photo, there might be some parts that I want to mask out so that I can see my photo better. We move this around so it's in a place where it's not really doing this. However, we're going to mask out just a little bit because I want you to see how you can kind of pick and choose what pieces you're going to keep. So on the watercolor layer, we're going to add a mask. Okay, yours, you might, or I'm sorry, we're not going to add a mask. We're going to dodge and burn first, and then we'll add a mask. So we're going to go to the burn tool over here. So you'll see that, you might see the dodge. So just click and hold on it to get the burn tool. We're going to start with, let's start with midtones and see how that goes. Keep your exposure low, about 15%. Once again, a soft edge on your brush, so hardness at maybe like 20. Right now you can see it's not letting me. And when I click down, it says no, but then when I actually click down, it says, do you want to rasterize the image? Yes, we want to rasterize that. And then what we can do is come and choose some areas that we want to make darker, or we could use dodge to make it lighter. So in this case, I want to get some of these like orange spots to show up a little bit more. So you're going to go over and you're going to go over these orange spots on the side and get those to show up a little bit more. And that's going to darken that. Okay, if there's any areas too light, let's dodge a little bit. We can come in here and lighten some areas. So what I want you to do is burn in the orange area on the right so we can bring in more of this. Then we're going to go to watercolor layer. We're going to press the mask. This time we're going to our brush. We're working with black because we want to mask out part of it. If your settings stayed the same, you're good to go. In Photo P, they might reset. So soft edge on your brush, low opacity, about 20%. And then you can change your opacity. Once again, if we have it at 100% and we click, it's just going to take out a big chunk at a time. We'll keep that low. And we could say, hey, maybe I don't really like this part. So I could just mask that out if there's parts that you decide you don't want. If you're getting a really soft edge like that, then increase the crispness, the hardness of your edge. Okay, so in this case, I don't need you to actually mask something out. I just wanted you to see how we mask that out so you can take it off of your picture in certain places where it doesn't work. All right, we're going to leave that like that. Go ahead and you can save this as a JPEG to get ready to hand it in.